And today, I've chosen to bring my business partner and investor, David Carter, into, let's call it the studio, or at least here at the conference table. As we speak, it's the end of April 2025, and the stock markets are raging. Watches are cheap, and they're being traded all over the planet. More or less, I feel like saying, as never before. That's not true, but it's close to what we experienced, at least before COVID, namely that the market is actually hot again. And that combination of a healthy watch market that's cheap, a stock market that's overpriced, and a stock market that's deeply unpredictable and volatile, well, that makes me really want David to share his thoughts on what he's experiencing. David, if I may briefly introduce you before I hand you the floor. David is my investor in Urhandleren Invest, and Time Trade Investments. In short, David joined the ownership group last year with a significant investment in our company, and we got to know each other before that. When David started investing with Urhandleren Invest as, let's say, a regular investment client, and even before that, when David was simply a customer of ours and bought his first Patek.
Yes, and I'm wearing it today.
Ah, fantastic. That's the one watch you must never ever sell.
I will never ever sell this one.
Glad.
It's like, yeah, my third child.
Lovely. So, of course, it's important for me to point out from the start that David is partly a buyer in the sense that David is on both sides of the counter and also owns part of the business. It's important for me to say that because that's actually not the angle I'm after today. I'm after the angle where David can tell us a bit about what it's like to be a professional or semi-professional investor in Denmark right now, and how one can and should act, according to David, in relation to the stock market and other alternatives, including collectibles, especially watches. David, what's your take on the market, the financial markets? What are you experiencing this spring with the winds raging?
Yeah, what can I even say? The last 3 months, the last 4 months, we've seen such huge gains in the stock market. In 2024, it was so easy to just say, you know what, passive investments, stocks, nothing can go wrong. We've made something like 17, 18% in a year. And then when we started buying into alternative investments, of course, people couldn't see why. And I was also a bit, before I knew about Urhandleren Invest, I was also kind of new to the world of alternative investments. But I think it's even more important to talk about it now. And I'm lucky enough to have already gotten involved in this world and seen, is this really the kind of return? And is it really such a consistently secure return you can get while everything else is just going crazy every single day? Then the stock market went up. Every single time Trump opened his mouth, it went up 4%, then down 4%, then up 5%. And in that way, it's really hard for me as an investor when I just became a bit more active, for example, with you guys, just to plan things like cash flow. How am I supposed to get a bit more liquid? Should I just sell off some stocks? Should I just sell off some bonds? Everything is just going a bit badly right now. But for me, it's even more important to have the portfolio I have with Urhandleren Invest, not as part of this group of owners, but as an investment client. Not in a subjective way, but while my stocks, my portfolio, you know, the deal swings up and down, and I almost have to just leave it alone. But it does give me some worry about it. You can just look at my small portfolio with you, and we've already sold many watches in Q1 from my portfolio, and that kind of stable return means an insane amount as an active investor. That just has to be said.
Of course, I also think it's important to tell our dear listeners and viewers that when it comes to your role at Urhandleren Invest as an investment client, we've taken great pride from the very beginning in treating you exactly like all our other investment clients. You have signed the same standard agreement.
Yes.
You have the same standard terms and conditions. It's extremely important to us because it's always so easy to favor a business partner in one way or another.
Yes.
But it's extremely important to us that the story is transparent and that the track record we build together can be presented both internationally and domestically, knowing that we have an objective piece of material in your case, as well as in the cases of our existing investment clients.
The good thing actually right now is that when I bought into Urhandleren Invest, the people who helped me with my own portfolio optimization, they were very curious. Okay, why did you buy into Urhandleren Invest? What is it about? And for me, it was more like I had to explain why I did it, why it makes sense. And those same people right now, for the past 2, 3, 4 weeks, they've been calling me up and saying, okay, can we really talk about alternative investments now? And now it's much more proactive. There's been much more focus on it. And it really gives me such good energy that I've always believed in the concept, but now people can see why it's so important. They're putting much more emphasis on alternative capital storage during these very uncertain times. So it's been really nice to have those conversations because I'm also like, we've talked a bit back and forth and we just need to get out there and present, not because we've been looking for it, because people have actually called us up and said, can you explain a bit more about it? What is a handler and invest all about?
And I think you're absolutely right. What you're experiencing is also what I'm experiencing on the commercial side. More and more people are reaching out. Our existing investment clients want to increase their commitments at the moment. And new interested, curious, potential investment clients are coming in. And that goes without saying. I mean, we've gone a bit from the worst possible storm 2 years ago, where stocks were soaring while watches experienced a market correction because they had become too expensive at the time, to now where the table has turned, right? Now we're in a different place where it's actually about the fact that we have a massively overpriced stock market, especially American stocks, but really maybe the whole planet. And that's even without taking Trump or any other disruptions in the stock market into account. At the same time, we're looking at some cheap watches. They haven't been this cheap since before COVID. And most importantly, we have watches that we can actually trade. What we need to remember at Uhandleren Invest over in our ongoing Invest product is that it's actually not just about the value increase of each individual watch. That's really just an extra bonus and a safety net. It's much more about our ability to sell the watch in the market and the fact that we have a market both domestically and abroad where we actually have the opportunity to resell. And already now, we had our Q1 meeting yesterday, where we can actually see that we're already 50% over budget in terms of sales for Q1. And that's actually quite telling. And Q1 is, for obvious reasons, almost entirely without the Trump effect. The fact that we can allow ourselves to operate in a market and trade as strongly as we can, again, both with trading partners, but most importantly, also with end customers. That the end customer is back, whether it's for the ladies' watch at 35,000, the platinum watch at 1 million, or the Richard Mille at 2.5 million. That is so incredibly essential for our ongoing investment product. So the fact that we can offer that diversity just means that a lot of people, including yourself and your network, are looking into this opportunity because it may never have been cheaper to get in, combined with the fact that the stock market has never been more expensive and more risky.
But also, just to kind of hold on a bit more, I'm a bit more like, I create that helicopter overview. That was my point. We've talked about growth stories. And as you said, that was before Trump. We believe in our concept no matter what.
Oh, yes.
And now we're taking it even further. We're really rooting for Denmark with our European business concept. But at the same time, while you have earned such a high turnover, a really good Q1, I'm really proud to be a part of it. But we've also been thinking a lot about the future, 1, 2, 3 steps ahead. So we're ready. And then thanks to Trump, well, not thanks to Trump, but you know what I mean, that we've got everything ready regardless. And now there's going to be insane uncertainty.
Exactly.
And what's our opinion? That we deliver on capital preservation. We deliver a consistently stable return, both with ongoing invest and stack away. And of course, there are people who ask me, why not buy gold? But gold is just kind of stack away. And right now,
gold at all-time high.
It's at an all-time high. And right now, it's just even more volatile.
But look, it's super easy for us to sit here and sell our own product. But just look at the facts. Gold is close to an all-time high. It was recently at an all-time high compared to watches, which are partly made of gold and have often acted as a safe haven. Just like gold is, if not at an all-time low, then at least the cheapest it has been since before COVID. Do the math. There is an enormous amount of potential. At the same time, even if there hadn't been any potential, if we had just been able to beat inflation, then even that alone would have made it a safe haven. But you've actually doubled the effect. Right now, you have both the safe haven and a huge unleashed potential, right? Yeah. That's exactly what we're tapping into right now. And of course, that's what generates the curiosity. A quick note, we also mentioned it in one of our earlier podcast episodes. The big difference we're experiencing and the reason why we're seeing so much traffic towards Uhandleren Invest and time trade investments right now is definitely the effect people feel when they're at a casino and frankly lose just as many, unfortunately, experience the stock market. Well, usually you don't want to go home. You'd rather stay just half an hour longer. That's actually where the casino makes its money. It's that last half hour.
Maybe for you, that's a bit much.
Exactly. Anyway, the important thing is just to see the difference between regular casino nights or the usual times in the stock markets now. People have kind of realized, okay, maybe this roulette isn't super safe to be in. There aren't many people left in the stock market waiting to make back their losses or waiting for Novo Nordisk to double in price again soon. That dream is kind of gone. So the stock market will probably be reasonable over time.
Yeah, 100%.
But now over time has become a long time and people want to get away from this uncertainty or at least have some degree of diversification. They want more than just that. And that's why I think we're seeing that many people are now ready to leave the stock market early and move into something safe and less volatile and actually cut their losses instead of living in the dream that everything will be fine again tomorrow. So in previous stock market corrections, people often tended to stay put. It used to be harder to get them to move over to alternative investments because they wanted to recover their losses first, just a little longer, just a little longer. But this time, people have understood that there isn't necessarily something just around the corner. It could actually be that this will take years. And who knows if this president can actually find 4 extra years for himself in his constitution when he himself rewrites it soon. Who knows? The long and short of it is simply that we are living in a time where reality keeps outdoing our imagination again and again. And against that backdrop, there are simply many people who want to move into something safe, secure, less volatile, and with extremely high returns, like watches have proven to be at times and seem to be becoming again now.
But you're speaking the same language as me because yes, with my portfolio, I don't dare sell all my stocks right now. I don't dare buy more either, but I have this pool that just needs to be reinvested, of course.
Of course.
And that's why we're calling in January, because I had this idea. You gave some advice, and then we added a bit more to the portfolio. And that's perfect because it was also a mix of stack away and ongoing invest. And as you say, for me, I'm the kind of person, my past was about making a trade every day, so I love ongoing invest. But right now, because it's split depending on how things are going, so I get even more excited with stack away.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I also think that's the reason why we're launching this single sales website in Urhandler Invest, where you have the opportunity as a holding company or a private individual with free funds to go in and buy 1 or 2 watches with investment in mind. Well, it just really, really makes sense in relation to stack away. And a year ago, I would have said, be careful with stack away and hoping for short-term profits over half a year or a full year. Now, we actually dare to say that the time frame doesn't have to be 5 years to stack something away because things are as cheap as they are and there is such a limited or restricted supply on the planet. And there are so many new wealthy individuals on the way that it's just sound math. As long as you can't drive your Ferrari into the restaurant and your watch is actually your primary piece of jewelry, then it just makes a lot of sense to be properly exposed. If the right price, the right strategy, and the right risk tolerance are reflected in that investment.
Exactly. And it might sound a bit cliche, why is now the time? But we've always believed in the concept. Back before Trump, during those Trump days, I invested as a client and I invested in your dream, in your company's dream, that the concept is something that can work, it can succeed. I've experienced it myself and I believe in the concept. I believe in this growth story. I love that we can just have that dream and believe that luxury watches, watch investment are part of the conversation alongside luxury cars, art and all that, like with wine. But now I really think it's so refreshing that people are getting even more involved in a new concept because it's always difficult just to convince people that this is the right path to take. But now it's just like that for me. And that's why I'm sitting here and we're talking a bit more deeply about it because it's much more proactive and I act a bit more reactively to the demand. I don't have to explain as much because people already know so much about it.
Exactly, because one thing is that we've recently gone public with Urhandler Invest, but we've actually had traction all the way back since 2016. The other day, I had a meeting with our very first investment client, who is still one of our biggest investment clients today, 9 years later. And there's been a bull market, bear market, COVID, war, and all sorts of good times and bad times. Everything imaginable on the planet has happened in the meantime. And yet we've managed to make money for that person all these years. In fact, later today, I'm driving to Funen to meet with one of our investment clients who has been with us since 2017 or 2018 and who is also still on board. And the fact that the proof of concept and that traction are already in place just means that even though to the public we are a relatively new concept, well, we've actually been thoroughly tested for years in good markets, tough markets, and through all the ups and downs of COVID, all of that. And that just means that when we've had a really tough year like 2022, well, then our investors make 1 or 1.5% at the bottom line there. Well, then that's just terrible. Then I get a call, hey, Daniel, what's going on? Yeah, but if you had been in a bad year in the stock market, you could have lost 30%. Here, we're making 1 or 2% for you. And in the best years, well, then we're way up in the double-digit percentages for our investment clients as well. So I think we have that proof of concept, despite the fact that we're such a new investment firm.
Yeah, but that's why we're talking about it. That's kind of why I'm here. That we want to grow. We really want to prove that we're fully present. We're here to deliver. We're a truly trustworthy and reliable concept. And as you just mentioned, with the right kind of expert advice, investing in luxury watches is actually a really good concept. It really is.
And the world is just maturing tremendously when it comes to collectibles as a whole right now. It could be wine, it could be diamonds, it could be art. Where we just think, and of course we're very subjective here, that's obvious, but where we just think watches have something that the other things don't. Well, for example, if we look at the Middle East and large parts of Asia, well, people there don't drink wine, at least not to any significant extent, right? But on the other hand, they're very, very into high-end watches. So watches might be one of the few collectibles or commodities, if you will, that actually work across the entire planet, across all cultures. And again, earlier we were talking about how reality is currently outdoing imagination. And in these worst case scenarios where you actually have to pack a suitcase, and God forbid anyone ends up in such a situation, and move 30 million kroner in your suitcase, that's just really, really difficult. In art or in wine or whatever else. So there are just some other positive effects with watches. What we're up against is definitely a watch market that fortunately is full of enthusiasts who unfortunately just have a different opinion. You're only allowed to buy a watch with your heart. You're not allowed to buy a watch as an investment, they say. That's not entirely true. I mean, why? Why aren't you allowed to? Why can't you buy your Ferrari as an investment, or your Lamborghini or your Picasso? I mean, sure, enjoy it. But keep the investment aspect in mind, or at least there's nothing wrong with that. So that's where we are. That's where we're groundbreaking in this. I recently had a conversation with Roman Scharf, where we also discussed this with Roman, who runs Luxury Bazaar, one of the largest secondary market dealers in the world, where I actually say to him, listen, in every other video you say watches are not an investment, watches are not an investment. Then he says, no, but it's just those watches that I don't think are an investment. So even Roman capitulates on some level and says, well, okay, fair enough. Of course, you can buy into this with an investment perspective. And by the way, we'll have some more conversations with Roman also in front of a camera where he can express his own thoughts on this. So you don't just have to take my word for it. I'm looking forward to catching him for that.
Cliffhanger.
Yes, that's quite a cliffhanger. But the short version is just that you step into something that's so unexplored, but at the same time, so thoroughly tested.
Yes.
And that mismatch just leaves a huge potential. And that's really what we want as many people as possible to tap into, both at home and abroad right now.
And so you can hardly add more years to that kind of sitting, because you're the one with that experience. And we just need to sort of bring it back a bit to the investment side of things. What do I do as an investment? If I look at my portfolio, and I also need to plan a bit of allocation, how should I live my life? What does my cash flow look like? And right now also with bonds, because of the interest rates, it changes almost every day. And so it just swings up and down, a bit more stable than stocks, 100%. But the good thing is, if I look at my own portfolio with bonds, then I have much more certainty about where it's headed. And that means an incredible amount right now when I plan, how my financial years are going to turn out. It's a bit easier after this proven concept. With you, ongoing invest, stack away, that deal is almost up and running, and it's proven. It's proven. I've basically experienced it for almost a year now. Well, yes. So yes, it's a wonderful thing and a great kind of security to have when I'm planning my investment portfolio and I'm planning my cash flow. I'm planning with my offerings for next year. I don't really dare to sell my stock right now. And yes, as I said before, it's good to have that kind of security, also with the small advantage that they're actually luxury watches.
That just makes a lot of sense. And the moment you can sit there and have that sense of security based on 12 months, the past 12 months, where we're coming out of this correction and returning to a market, can you have that feeling then? Well, then maybe you can always have it.
Yeah.
For there were actually difficult times, right? So that we can base our sense of security on that period. Well, then we've kind of been stress tested.
But that's why you're talking about those original customers from 9 years, 7 years, 5 years ago. That's how they've stuck with you regardless, because they've seen how the concept works. And then I also I'm almost certain of that, hopefully, if you never get worse. But yeah, I can totally understand that as soon as you get introduced to this world, you can just see how everything works. And that means an insane amount.
I think we should get in touch with some of our existing investment clients and invite them into the studio as well.
Good idea.
Because one thing is that you and I, who own the business, agree on this, and you as an investment client also experience this. But I think we should get some input from some of those who have experienced this firsthand without owning a part of us, but who have owned a portfolio for years. We should try to arrange that in the near future.
Yes.
Thank you for watching or listening, or maybe even both. We look forward to coming back. I have a lot on my mind, especially for our dear end customers regarding summer vacation and how to take care of your watch when it's time to travel. More about that in the next podcast. Talk to you soon. Thank you very much.